How do you engage the next generation of investors? Effective communication, financial literacy, and sharing family values are all certainly great starting points. Today, we're going to discuss various methods that a family office may utilize to help the next gen navigate a potentially complex world. We'll discuss that right now on UBS Trending. Hi, everybody, and welcome to UBS Trending. I'm Anthony Pastore. Thanks for joining us again for our next episode. I want to welcome my guest, Mark Tepsick, back to the studio from our family office here at UBS, and one of our partners and colleagues from Business Consulting Resources, Kyler Gilbert. Gentlemen, good to have you here.
Great to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back, and welcome, Kyler. So, this conversation is something that I always find to be really interesting for family offices. You've got the older generations, whether it's grandma, grandpa, the parents, aunts and uncles. It could be any manner of person involved, in-laws. But then you've got the younger generations. They could be young kids, 20, 30 years old. So there's all different kinds of family offices. There's all different kinds of structures. So I guess to level set that, Kyler, in your world, in your role in what you do and in your own life, how important is it to really open up dialogue and have the conversations with the family? Because without communication, it seems like you're starting off really poorly.
When you think about setting that trust, accountability, respect, communication for the next gen, that's really what they want to hear. They want to hear that they're included. They want to hear that they're respected. They want to hear that their opinions are heard. And as we go through this transition of wealth, transition of business, any business has to have communication as that foundation. And it's not just base level, kind of surface level communication. I truly believe that you have to get deep in the dynamics. You have to get deep in the conversations that maybe you don't want to have. That's where bringing on an additional advisor helps sometimes. But you really need to have that deep, intentional communication to set the foundation.
Right. It seems like probably the first thing that needs to happen is getting everybody to agree to a date, like sitting at the table together, or if you've got family members on the East and West Coast, getting a Zoom or something on the calendar so that you can at least start the dialogue. Because family values are really important. The younger generation has to kind of understand where the older generation's coming from.
You have to set the family values to begin with. You can't just say, hey, we're going to have a meeting and you guys can all come here and we'll talk about whatever. If you set the agenda, you set the family values, you set the intention, that's super important. And sometimes getting people to just say, yes, I will come to a meeting is one of the hardest things because of all the tension that's been created in the past.
But you would recommend having somebody there to kind of, navigate the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, you can do it. And we've talked with a lot of families that have yearly family meetings that they facilitate, but it still becomes tricky. And the thing that I tell our clients and that we tell ourselves is that it's very easy to work in the business. It's very hard to step out and work on the business. Even as a consultant in a family business, we have trouble working on the business ourselves. So you need someone that can kind of push you, that can hold you accountable, even if you know what you're doing.
Right. What are some of those challenges? What have they looked like in your experience?
It's honestly having the tough conversations.
Right.
When you talk about succession, you're faced with answering the tough questions of what happens with the next generation, what happens when I leave this company, what happens when future kids join the organization, how do we want them to make decisions, how do we want them to interact with the other non-family members. So it's having the tough conversations. That's really the challenge.
You mentioned the word succession. I think everybody's minds automatically go to the TV show, and we know that, not to spoil it, but it didn't really go that well for that family. So something you want to be prepared for.
And honestly, I think it's next level family dynamics and succession, but the core of those issues are very similar. They just add a bunch more zeros in the show.
That's right.
But and that's sometimes a detriment to dealing with succession when you have a lot of wealth that's in there, is if you don't talk about this early, if you don't start planning, you have these kind of festering of emotions that happen over and over, and they burst. And that's what we saw with the show.
Right. So that's obviously an exaggeration. But so the role of
not really. I think it happens, but
interesting.
It's terrible.
Yeah, right, exactly. We don't want that for the people who are watching this today. So the role of the non-family member really is crucial in keeping everybody together at the table.
That's super important, and they bring that third-party perspective, that kind of emotional intelligence that can say, hey, I'm like outside all of these dynamics. I can come in and I can look at this from a different perspective. That's, it's great to have knowledgeable people, and that's what everyone is. And
that's right.
We're experts and we know what we're talking about, but a lot of the times you're working with smart clients too. They know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about, and you need that third-party perspective to come in and say, okay, here's what's actually going on. Like, you guys are blinded by some dynamic or something here. I'm going to come in, I'm going to offer this perspective. That becomes critically important.
Right, families have personal history as well, which can
Yeah.
also sometimes be dramatic, which
Yeah.
kind of gets you away from the actual business, right?
Yeah.
So, Mark, when you focus on engagement when you're looking at sort of family offices, what would you say a typical effective model looks like?
Yeah, so you have a lot of family office executives who are non-family members that the senior generation says, listen, go out, help them develop, help them think through these concepts, topics, investing, tax, legal, around the business, around the investment portfolio. And those family office executives are tasked with helping the next generation develop, but those are also their future bosses. So it becomes an interesting dynamic. And so you see a lot of family office executives saying, here's what we're going to do, almost in a vacuum, and saying, like, here's what's important to me from the family office executive standpoint. But the most successful models I see are ones that have that communication with that next gen to say, listen, here's everything that we could talk about, okay, but what is important to you? And so it allows them to choose. It gives them choice. It gives them autonomy. And it really says, all right, here's what I want to focus on.
And I think there's a potential dangerous dynamic that happens if you give the next gen too much responsibility for deciding the direction of the company. You have to, and that's the responsibility of the family office executive to say, I'm going to let you help us determine the direction, but I'm also going to give you my expertise and give you my knowledge and help kind of guide us, because if there's an idea that the next gen has that isn't financially feasible, it doesn't make any sense. You don't want to just let that go.
Yeah, so to that end, I mean, the family office engagement model is really taking the family enterprise, which could be the business, the portfolio, and saying, what do you want to learn about, right? Because it's almost starting not at zero, but a lot of vague notions, right? And so if you allow that next gen to say, here's all that we could talk about, here's how we can engage, here's options, pick and choose how you want to engage this, because then that gives them ownership, right? It allows them to choose, it gives them ownership, and if you have ownership in that engagement model, they're going to want to make it successful. And it won't always be successful, but you're going to have a greater probability of success there.
I mean, like we talk about engagement, clearly you have to engage both sides, because at some point the younger generation may have a set of values that are different than the old generation, or maybe they're the same, but they could be diametrically opposed. I think getting to the table. So it seems like, the engagement portion, Mark, is super important. So how important it is to kind of, or what I would say, maybe what's the biggest opportunity for a family office engagement, especially in sort of executing on the engagements that you're talking about?
Yeah, so if you take a step back, right, where the family office executive is looking at future boss down the road, helping them develop, you're really getting to know that person better, how they think. And that allows that family office executive, who again is a non-family member, to really anticipate, to really understand how they think, and to really help them navigate, right, the future of that enterprise as well, which again could be the family office, the business, the portfolio. And it's just you're creating better, deeper rapport and getting to know your client.
That's, super important. Kyler, any final words to add as we're wrapping up here? You've been nodding a lot, so I know there's a lot of agreement happening at the table.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with what Mark is talking about. I think it's important to develop that rapport. It's important to build that relationship beyond anything. And I think what we're trying to say to our families, and I think what everyone should say working with families, is we want it to be right, a mutual agreement that this is the right opportunity. You don't want to have to drag someone along in the relationship, because then you're going to get frustrated, then the family you're working with is going to get frustrated. So you need that mutual respect, that mutual agreement that, hey, we know that you're valuable, you know that we're valuable, this is going to be a great long-term relationship.
Right. Go in with a calm, clear head, take the emotion out of it, have the mediator in the room.
Emotion, but try to not some extreme
Not
emotions.
dramatic emotion.
Yes, exactly.
Got it,
And
makes sense.
When you have that communication and that transparency, listen, nobody has all the answers, right? You don't have a crystal ball, you can't look into the future, but if you have that communication, that transparency, it allows you to really think about the options and how to navigate the future together. But without communication, transparency, it's not going to happen. It's going to be disjointed, which
Yeah.
it could happen anyways.
Perfect way to kind of put a perfect period, maybe a dot at the end, because this is an ongoing conversation. But great to have the basis and sit with you both and talk through this. Thanks, guys. Good to be here and good to be with you. And Kyler and Mark, thanks. Good to see
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you soon. And for more information, there's lots more information from UBS at our website, ubs.com/views. Plus, you can follow us on social media. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So check out all those channels for content from the firm and from UBS Studios. And as always, if you have any questions related to our conversation today, make sure you're talking with your financial advisor. Until next time, I'm Anthony Pastore. Have a great day, everybody. And remember to keep your eyes on what's trending. See you soon.